Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about a fragrance that I got in the Black Friday sales. It got a lot of hype in the community, so stay tuned to find out if it's any good.
What? I thought you weren't going to get any more fragrances.
I'm recording there, I'm not. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about your pretty little face about it, love. It's fine. Yeah, so stay tuned. Anyway, it's good to... What the actual fuck? Word to your mother, my name's Steve, this channel is Frags Twitches. Thanks for tuning in. Now, as I mentioned before the title screen, I'm talking about a fragrance today that has been much hyped in the fragrance community for a solid cheapie. The fragrance I'm talking about today is Lacoste L'Homme Intense. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's the original Lacoste L'Homme, and then this is supposedly the more intense version. Now, I'll tell you about the performance, etc. later, and if it is intense. But this fragrance got a lot of hype as a great cheapie, and it's always been on my radar, if I'm honest, mainly because it's got the note of kind of mandarin and orange in it, which I love. So that's one of my favourite accords. So this has always kind of been on my radar, but for whatever reason, I've always found some other fragrances to buy. But in the Black Friday sale, I actually found this for quite a good deal, so I finally pulled the trigger. What I've neglected to mention so far is this was actually a blind buy. I bought this just purely because I like the look of the notes. Though almond has never been a favourite accord of mine, I love the note of mandarin and orange, as I mentioned, and I also quite like rhubarb. I've smelt that in a Joop or Yop fragrance before and thought it was alright. It's kind of different, a bit unique. So yeah, I was quite curious about this. Got it as a good deal. When it arrived, my very first impressions when I sprayed it were, yeah, it's nice. Which is fairly standard. I keep getting this with fragrances nowadays where they just don't blow me away, but they are perfectly nice and pleasant, and this is one of them. I got the wife to smell it in the opening quite early on, and she just said, oh, it smells like a teenager. I got to smell it about sort of 15-20 minutes later maybe to see if it's improved at all after the dry down, and she said, yeah, it's okay, it still smells like a 15-year-old. And I can kind of see what she means. It's basically got this shower gel, lynx, axe kind of vibe going on. It has got some unique touches. The rhubarb in the opening is obviously fairly rare in fragrances, so that gives it something a little bit different. And shock fucking horror, there's no actual bergamot in this, which is really rare nowadays in any sort of fragrance. The citrus kind of fresh, fruity opening, it comes from quince, grapefruit, orange, mandarin, and a lemon. But as I say, it's a very fresh, clean opening that is somewhat generic. It does remind me a little bit of some of these other shower gel fragrances that I've smelled more recently and reviewed on the channel, such as Sedley from Parfum de Marly, even though that's obviously a hell of a lot more expensive than this, Boss Bottled Infinite, and also Jaguar Pace. But this is a lot cheaper than all of those, apart from Jaguar Pace, and I actually do prefer it. I think the reason I actually prefer this over those aforementioned fragrances is, well, A, it's got the sort of orange mandarin accord at the top, which is just one of my favourites. But also, even though this does feel like a generic shower gel fragrance, it isn't as spicy to my nose as those other ones that I mentioned earlier. So for that reason, it does feel a little bit more modern. I wouldn't say those others kind of like old school or particularly dated, but the sort of spiciness in some of those ones that I've previously reviewed does feel like a little bit, just a little bit more kind of old school, traditional kind of man's cologne type stuff. They're not fougères, but I think you might know what I mean. But this one isn't spicy, it's slightly sweeter than those, and it's got some uniqueness from the sort of lack of bergamot and the rhubarb. So yeah, I do like this fragrance. Into the dry down, it becomes a bit more softer. So the amberwood comes through really quite prominent to me. Now, if you're not familiar with amberwood, it is an ambroxan-like effect. It doesn't smell directly like ambroxan to me, but it has the same sort of effect that it's essentially this kind of quite soft, clean, woody type fragrance. And it comes through really quite prominently to me and my nose, and I do get some of the almond as well. And even though I said I'm not a huge fan of almond, again, that doesn't kind of put me off. I'm quite fine with it in this fragrance. It works quite well. So yeah, I do enjoy the dry down. It's very clean. It's very, as I mentioned, fresh, very shower gelish, and the amberwood does come through, and it does make it. It does remind me of this fragrance. which is one that I actually really enjoy. This is Acqua di Gio Absolute. Now this did not get much love in the community. I think it deviated quite a bit from the original Acqua di Gio DNA, and people sort of just said it's kind of generic, shower gelish, etc., and it doesn't really add much to the line. For me, I liked it. It took the sort of ADG DNA in a different direction. It made it a bit more modern, a bit more youthful, and I sort of really quite enjoy this one. Where these two differ is obviously the price. This is a lot more expensive, but this is more aquatic. It's also probably slightly sweeter, yet for some reason it's also slightly more mature, which kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but for me that kind of works. I think it's, I've just kind of sprayed it on this arm. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is perfectly youthful. It's not like an old man mature fragrance, but it's probably a little bit more mature than this, I would say. But this still works, and you can still wear this if you're a young guy in your 20s, not a problem. I now know how my wife feels because I was underwhelmed by this performance. It's not a bad performing fragrance, but it's really not great. It lasted about 4 to 5 hours on my skin, and it was very much for that sort of fourth hour was very much a sort of skin scent, and the projection was kind of quite soft as well. I could smell it in that sort of first hour. It's sort of first half an hour it's sort of quite noticeable, then it starts raining in. You can smell it sort of for the first hour, then it basically becomes a skin scent for the remaining time. And as I say, it's sort of about 4 to 5 hours it sort of lasted on my skin. So not great. If this is the intense version, fuck knows what the standard version's like. So I'm now going to do that thing where I ask myself a question and then I answer it, and I'm going to do that twice. The first question is going to be, would I recommend this fragrance? And the answer is yes, but with a strong caveat. You can get this for like 25, 30, 35 quid or whatever, so it's really quite affordable. Now, if you are not a major frag head, you just want to smell clean, you want a like cheap fragrance that is kind of work appropriate, that's also would work well on dates, it's really versatile, then I think this is it. I think this is a solid fragrance in that regard. It smells nice, nobody's going to find it unoffensive. You might even pick up the odd compliment because there's some uniqueness there, but I just don't think it's strong enough for people to really kind of notice it to compliment you. But yeah, if you're like that, then yes, I would recommend it. Basically, if you were like I was before I got into this whole fragcom thing, where I basically had a handful of fragrances, a couple that I'd wear to work and a couple that I wore out to smart meals and stuff, this would be ideal work fragrance. I used to get kind of a cheaper, nice fragrance to wear to work, and this would be it. So that kind of leads me on to my next question is, am I going to keep this fragrance? The answer is probably not. If I was me 2 years ago, basically if I bought this a couple of years ago, I'd probably keep it because it's nice, I like it. And it works, and as I say, it's perfectly versatile. I can wear it to work, I can wear it out, and it's nice. I do like the fragrance, but I'm at that stage now in my fragcom journey, which I know is really wanky to say, that I've got a lot of fragrances, and I'm not the sort of person that just keeps them and has this ever-growing fragrance. I basically try and rotate them and filter them down and keep the best fragrances that I've had. So I kind of, and even when I find a fragrance I really like, if I wear it too much, I then just move it on and get something fresh into the team. It's like each fragrance is battling to be my starting lineup. So, and then I'll just rotate it and keep it. So my starting lineup's always the best of my fragrances, and that's how I think of it in my head. And as much as I like this fragrance, a couple of years ago, I didn't own that many, and this would have made it into the starting lineup. But now, I own so many more fragrances that I prefer to this one. Acqua di Gio Absolute being one of them. So I just don't think, there's no reason for me to wear this over and above a lot of my other fragrances that I do actually think are better than this. So, but it's not bad. I think you know where I'm coming from. So there you go, that's L'Homme Intense from Lacoste. Very nice fragrance, one that I would have kept a couple of years ago, but now I just won't because I own fragrances that do that better. Let me know what you think to it, and have you smelled the original? Is this a lot stronger? Kind of, let's keep the conversation below and help people make an informed decision. Thank you for watching. You know the score. If you haven't already, hit like and subscribe and all that shit, please do that because it helps me grow. And also do check out my other YouTube channel, which is kind of like comedy type stuff, and some of it is of an adult nature. So if you're into that kind of thing, you might like it, who knows. Thanks again for watching. I will see you for the next video. Take care, much love.